Welcome to CVC Interviews. I'm Ivy2, your host, and today I have Dr. Keisha Powell, who is a seasoned autism specialist with over 28 years of experience, and she's also the CEO of Powell Therapy Solutions, LLC, and the host of a show here on the Community Voice channel.
Hi, I'm Dr. Keisha Powell, CEO of Powell Therapy Solutions, LLC, and the host of the Dr. Powell Show. I'm a performance psychologist, a certified and licensed autism therapist, and a board-certified sexologist with the American Board of Sexology. Here at Powell Therapy Solutions, we're changing the dynamic of how persons diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders receive services and how treatment is delivered for trauma care. For more information, visit our website at powelltherapysolutions.com or email us at powelltherapysolutions@gmail.com. Remember, Powell Therapy Solutions, real support, real growth, and real inclusion.
Well, welcome, Dr. Keisha Powell. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Ivy. This is such an honor, and it feels really weird to be on the other side, but it's such an honor to be here today.
Absolutely. So I want to take us way back to when you were a student in Jamaica. You were studying education, you were studying English and communications, and then later you went on to study more like autism as well as special education. Can you take us through that journey?
Yes. Wow. It's been years. Holy cow. So I started my studies in Jamaica. I was actually 16 years old when I started college, and I wanted to be in the field of education. I'll never forget, my parents wanted me to either go into medicine or law, but education for me was different. I believe that stemmed from my grandmother, who was an educator for many years, and started a school, a pre-K school for children who were living in a rural community. Growing in that, going to work with her when I was 2 years old changed a lot in my life. So I started out as a teacher of English, both high school English and communication, and I also taught at the college level as a professor of English. But I felt like there was something more I needed to do. So moving forward, when I migrated to the United States, I discovered special education. That field wasn't as prominent in Jamaica as it was here. When people ask me, well, how did you get involved in autism? To be honest, autism found me. It was during my studies, during my grad studies at the time it was St. Joseph College, now it's University of St. Joseph. The state of Connecticut, they needed autism specialists. So in my first year of grad studies, I had a wonderful professor who encouraged me. She saw that my work, my research was centered around individuals with autism. And she said, you know what, do this program. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm already doing this master's program. I'm going to do a second master's while I'm doing this. But she encouraged me. So I ended up segueing into the autism specialist program, which I have to say, it taught me and it changed the whole trajectory of my life.
That's incredible.
There were 10 of us who started the program and only 3 of us graduated from the program.
So can you tell me and tell everyone who may not be clear, what exactly is autism?
So autism is a neurological disorder that affects 1 in 56 children. Primarily, boys are diagnosed, have a higher diagnosis than girls. Unfortunately, back in the day, even when I started, autism was often misdiagnosed as ADHD and ADD. So many individuals who actually had the diagnoses of autism were misdiagnosed. We've now found out that a lot of adults who recognize the characteristics of autism are now being diagnosed at a later age in life. In our state, for example, there are not many specialists, unfortunately. There are board certified behavior analysts, and for the viewers, I just want to define what that is. There's a difference between an autism specialist and a behavior analyst, but we pretty much do the same things because we do use the tenets of applied behavior analysis. What separates us is that a behavior analyst can only do certain assessments. They're not trained, neither are they, because they're guided by their board, not supposed to do certain assessments. And I think this is where the confusion often lies. Autism specialists, unfortunately, not, and I want to make this clear because not everyone who gets a certification in autism is a specialist. A person who is a specialist in autism goes through rigorous training and has a board license. I have a board license as well.
Right. So speaking of board licenses, so you're a board certified sexologist, certified and licensed autism specialist, and a certified assistive technology specialist. How do these all work together for you to do the work that you do today?
Thank you for asking that question. So you can go through the certification, yes, for becoming an autism specialist, but there's other pieces to it. Because autism, you're thinking about 4 different characteristics. You're looking at social emotional piece of it. You're looking at sensory piece of it. You're looking at the behavioral piece of it. And so the assistive technology piece allows me to look at how the person is accessing not just technology or different forms of technology, but mobility, communication, so that when I'm working with, say, for example, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, or even a speech and language pathologist, the assistive technology piece allows me to understand the needs and meet the needs of those individuals.
So this goes beyond just like physical aspects, but it's also technology, it's like mental, emotional.
Right. And then also, what I didn't mention earlier is I'm also a performance psychologist, which encompasses cognition, behavior, and looking at psychology.
That's what you got your doctorate in?
Yes.
So can you tell us exactly what a performance psychologist is?
So a performance psychologist, they're people who use it for different reasons. You do look at the brain, you look at the physical cognition part of it, you look at mobility. Some performance psychologists go into sports psychology, for example. For me, I went into autism and my research was on autism. Coupled with the fact that I'm also a board certified sexologist with the American Board of Sexology, understanding relationships, understanding how to work with someone who is neurodiverse, going through different transitory periods of their adult life. That's also something that I do as a performance psychologist.
Oh, that's incredible. So can you take us back to day one of Powell Therapy Solutions?
Powell Therapy Solutions was actually born in June of 2020. At the time, I was always hired as an autism specialist for school systems here in Connecticut. And at one point, I was the head of the autism initiative for the State Education Resource Center and also a long arm of the Special Education Bureau for Connecticut.
Can you actually tell us about that? Because I know you spearheaded a whole initiative about that.
So the state created a program, an initiative to educate not just school systems, but everyone, including parents, because we also had a lot of parent partner initiatives. so that information could be disseminated across the state of Connecticut. My role was to work with pretty much everyone in each initiative, along with the Department of Special Education Bureau. We developed different bulletins, we developed different publications.
So what kind of information are these things talking about?
Well, it talks about autism in terms of what parents should look for in terms of identifying their children, how it should look like in a school system, how the school system under IDEA and along with federal guidelines with regards to special education, what that should look like for them in terms of them accessing the curriculum in the school system, what programs would be, ideal for them, and how the law protects our children in the school systems and what it should look like.
So going back to almost day one at Powell Therapy Solutions,
So going back to Powell
and creating
Therapy.
your mission, can you just talk us through that?
So it was a culmination of all my experiences and wanting to do more for the population. We developed different programs. We now have behavior analysts. However, we put in all the work into the children when they're younger. But as they become teens and adults, that's where the struggle is, because again, as I said earlier, that autism is a neurological disorder. And you have a lot of people out there who have mishposh on social media on what cures and stuff should look like without actually looking at the individual and understanding the diagnoses of autism. So Powell Therapy Solutions was born because I realized that adults were struggling. And one of the biggest things with even the Department of Children and Families and the Department of Developmental Services had an issue with identifying or providing services for individuals who were neurodiverse, who were victims of sexual abuse. So I wanted to do something more, but there's only so much and no more you can do when you are pigeonholed.
Right.
And so Powell Therapy Solution Services was born as a result of that. I work with patients ranging from the ages of 13 all the way up to almost 30 years old. I've worked with older people as well, people who have recently been diagnosed with autism, trying to figure their way and meander through it. It has been a blessing, to say the least, and has opened up many avenues for others as well, to the point where I was invited either 2 or 3 times at the state capitol to present on the statistics of autism in our state.
Well, the work you do is clearly important. So how do you support adults and teens beyond traditional therapy?
I'm glad you asked that question. Individuals with autism, for me, have been the most phenomenal individuals I've ever had the opportunity to work with. Very gifted, very talented. There's a lot that goes into it. But I've seen the struggle where now I'm an adult, what is next? I've seen where parents are like, Dr. Powell, we can't find specialists like you out there. So it was, again, another change where I had to make that decision that my focus would be on adults and teenagers. What I would like to see changing in our state with regards to that is not just more services, because we have close to 130,000 social workers in our state. But again, training is not there. When you look at the curriculum for medical practitioners, for psychologists, for social workers, it's a touch and go.
So what type of services do you think should be provided, or what education, knowledge should these people be given?
I really believe that there needs to be an integration of not just within the curriculum, but also when social workers or any practitioner is going out into the field to do their internship, that they should be exposed to every genre of neurodiversity, whether it's autism, whether it's Down syndrome, whether any disability should be adhered to. Reason when we're providing treatment and we don't know what we're treating and we're giving the same generic prescription to an individual, again, diagnosed with autism, and we say, oh, we're focusing on the behaviors, oh, the color affects them. We have to be cognizant that the environment, and that's what Powell therapy offers as well, the environment is also a product of where you learn or how you learn and how you can look at the behaviors as well. And so I'd like to see that changing. I'd like to see more integration in our state. I'd like to see too at the state level that some of the documents that have been implemented for school systems and even in universities are so archaic that we need to catch up. Come on, Connecticut, we need to do better.
Well, that's a really good way
change.
to see change is also advocating, and you advocate a lot for awareness. And beyond advocacy, you're also a creative. You have shows, you have a podcast, a book. So I would just like to talk about your show here, the Dr. Powell Show. Can you tell us what influenced you to start that?
So that actually happened because there was this wonderful lady, Miss Melanie Merkel, who encouraged me, and Ryan Carson from Artist Haven Media, who at the time, Ryan did a lot of marketing stuff for me. And, you know, I did a podcast called Taboo, Transforming Your Pain to Passion. That was really came about my life, the things that I've gone through in my life. And I didn't expect that so many people from all over the world came on the show, talked about what they were going through. And I realized that mental wellness for professionals, it was real. And so when CVC invited me, you know, to say, you know, let's do a show, and I'm like, I'm not good with being on a camera. I prefer being in the background. But I tell you something, again, I didn't anticipate what would have come out of the show. It also helped me to connect professionals with the viewers, because mental health is a huge thing for us.
Is that the main topic you focus on, or is it broad?
A broad topic. So, for example, again, I picked parts that I had difficulty with. I used to take care of my parents. Both of them passed away recently. And I remembered going through that process, how difficult it was. And so there was even a segment on understanding insurance for elderly people and for caregivers, and looking at sexual abuse, looking at autism, looking at different aspects. And so the show itself started to take on a life of its own.
And I saw that you had an episode with a guest from South Korea, and you had also recently went to South Korea. Can you tell us about that?
So I went to South Korea last year for 2 months. It was a volunteer mission trip. I wanted to give back to a country, a culture, a community of people that have become like my second family away from the United States. I traveled there before for business and personal reasons, but this particular time I really wanted to give back. And almost 70 families who were impacted by autism were provided not only with therapy services, consultation, and I was also able to do some diagnostic evaluations. I do diagnostic evaluations as well. And I can tell you, it was one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my life, to see how fortunate we here are in the United States with resources. Not that South Korea doesn't have resources, but in terms of autism, we have more. Our insurance covers a lot more. School systems are, building programs for kids much more than what I witnessed in South Korea. And I hope that things will change, and I still want to go back and do more.
Right. Do you host like workshops over there like you do here? Or?
I have done one or two presentations, and I've been invited again to work with the children and family at a new center that they're building. So yes, I will be doing staff training and workshops.
That's
as well.
incredible.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about those workshops that you do?
Well, I can talk about the ones in the US, but I can't talk about the ones there yet.
Okay.
But the workshops I do here in the United States are centered around educating families on their rights. Once you find out that you have a child diagnosed with autism, what is next? How do you understand the laws, which requires special education services? How do you navigate that? I also connect parents with resources, as well as, because I still am in contact with former colleagues, not only in the education system, but also at the state level, and other places that offer support and resources for parents with individuals diagnosed with autism. And now I'm trying to create another avenue for adults as well who are diagnosed on the spectrum.
I actually was just about to ask you about adults who come into it later in life. How would you help guide them, support them if they weren't able to come see you? What would you say their next steps would be?
So I encourage adults who are diagnosed on the spectrum to reach out. First of all, do your research. Parents, whether it's parents, caregivers, the individuals themselves, do your research and find out where you can connect with someone who has the expertise and will understand. Because I know navigating this world isn't easy, especially transitions, building relationships, even something as working in your current career. And a lot of people, especially adults, I've found that they're stuck somewhere. So make sure you do your research. Not everyone who says, okay, I'm going to give you a generic treatment plan. It's much more than that.
Right. Is there something that we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about?
I think for next steps for me, and where I see Powell Therapy Solutions, is I would like to see more people, especially professionals. I am more than happy. I also do professional development training with organizations to help them understand what autism is about. Please feel free to invite me out, because I would like, again, to see things changing.
You're a natural educator. It's part of you. It really is. It really is.
I never looked at it that way.
I mean, you're educating people in everything you do, every aspect.
I want to see things changing, because as Maya Angelou says, you can't effect a change if you don't want to be part of the change.
Exactly.
Otherwise, be quiet. I just chose not to be quiet about it.
So why does this work all matter to you?
It does for many reasons. The families I've met along the way impacted me greatly. I remembered even at St. Joe's, to see each and every person who I've met along the way grow, and to see those changes. It is the most remarkable blessing I've ever, been able to experience. Each and every person is dear to me. And I know I've seen it firsthand that anyone diagnosed with autism can make a difference. And I want parents to hear that today. So I'm very honored that we're having this conversation, and thank you for allowing me to speak candidly and openly about it, because it has always been something I will still continue to fight for it.
Absolutely.
For viewers out there, if you feel in any, especially for adults who have a recent diagnosis of autism, if you feel that you need to talk more, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here. There's no judgment. Also giving you an opportunity to connect with resources that are available to you in our state.
Well, thank you, Dr. Powell, for being with us here today. You really do educate. You've educated me so much, as well as all of the viewers, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. Thank you for learning about advocacy towards autism awareness and getting all of this information out there into the universe, because Dr. Powell's work is very important. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Keisha Powell, CEO of Powell Therapy Solutions, LLC, and the host of the Dr. Powell Show. I'm a performance psychologist, a certified and licensed autism therapist, and a board-certified sexologist with the American Board of Sexology. Here at Powell Therapy Solutions, we're changing the dynamic of how persons diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders receive services and how treatment is delivered for trauma care. For more information, visit our website at powelltherapysolutions.com or email us at powelltherapysolutions@gmail.com. Remember, Powell Therapy Solutions, real support, real growth, and real inclusion.